On the day that the leadership in our school was made aware that we had 24 hours notice before our school ended, we were advised to get our students on WhatsApp. WhatsApp until that time had been used as a platform for students and teachers to be able to be connected in terms of attendance and assignments. WhatsApp is a platform for messaging, text, audio, and video that has been used worldwide for many, many years. Almost all of my students had a smartphone. Almost all of my students had WhatsApp as an app. When our school was about to close, we had emergency meetings in which 100 people at a time were given instruction in Haitian, Creole, in French, and in Spanish to download WhatsApp so that we could use it as a web platform for communication. We had no idea at that time that it would be used as a teaching platform. For myself, I had just begun to use a smartboard in class. My students had just learned to use QR codes for textbook exercises. My students had engaged in a few hours of computer training and were barely familiar with a keyboard and a mouse. For us, making the transition to WhatsApp was pretty difficult. However, this is what we did on the first day. On the very first day, I texted my students. What we did after that emergency meeting was we went back to our classrooms and we created a WhatsApp group. In this way, all of my students are connected, and in a single motion, I can text them or send videos or send audio messages. Having a few hours just to connect, just having an hour to make that group was what made us able to connect in the future. So 3 days later, I tapped on WhatsApp and I was able to connect to my 28 students in my beginner class and 28 students in my level 1 class. On that first night, what I was able to do was text them photos that they had taken around town. Here's one of those pictures, the picture of the student in front of the library. The Ferguson Library shows a photo that the student took of another student when we were outside taking pictures. So I was able to take a photo of this picture and send it to my students. And then I was able to send them another worksheet in which they were asked to answer questions. In this way, we conducted a 2-hour class, and we have continued to conduct our 4 classes a week, 2 hours a day. In my other class, we're 2 hours a night, twice a week. So this is what it looked like on the first day. I sent the students pictures that we had already taken. They were familiar with the language. They were familiar with the photos because they had taken the photos and they were in the photos. We have to remember that these are beginner students, and so we're at a very basic level of communication and language acquisition. On the second day, I made a series of home videos illustrating activities that occurred in the morning, afternoon, and evening, like getting up, doing laundry, exercising, listening to music. And then I asked students to send me their home photos. So on day 2, students were looking at things like this. Here I am ironing. They were able to look at the video, and then I asked them to respond by sending me a voicemail. I was able then to send them a voicemail. I was not yet able to send them a voicemail back. I was at that time only texting them. So on day 3, I discovered the microphone and the audio messages. And from that time, they were able to look at the videos and then respond to me by voicemail or by text. Most of them are responding only by voicemail because they're not proficient in texting at this level. So here's an example. Let's look at what do we do at home with Mishu. So after I made a series of videos around my house, I then asked students to contribute more of their own material. Here's Mishu at home cooking fish. And then later we see Alejandro, he's at work. He's in a warehouse. So these became the pieces that I would enter into on day 4, a PowerPoint in which I integrated the photos, the text, and the video, either from student materials or from my own materials. In this way, students were able to ask and answer questions in relationship to the videos and the pictures and the text that I would send them. This was the day on day 4 when my husband showed me how to copy and paste so I could slide a slide from my PowerPoint from the right side of my screen to the left side of my screen. Here we look at WhatsApp meets PowerPoint. And so you can see that on the right side, I have my PowerPoint slides. On the left side, I have the thread of the WhatsApp. And so I slide over one slide from the PowerPoint into the WhatsApp thread and then ask and answer questions. So using this platform in the last 2 weeks has been exhilarating. It's been exhausting. Here are some of the challenges. Unlike our face-to-face classroom, students don't have much opportunity to interact with each other. This is a real serious limitation for students with limited or interrupted formal education because they naturally are working in groups all the time and cooperating and depending on each other. The classroom as it has been used in the last 2 weeks is very teacher-centered. Again, this is not an ideal situation for students with limited or interrupted formal education. You can imagine that the class size must be small because of the overload that could occur with teachers responding to each student's submission of their text or voicemail. It's been a little tiresome to create the videos and try to keep students engaged right now. And the final drawback is that I've lost students for whom the pacing is either too slow or too fast. On the other hand, students have really gained the benefit of being listened to in a very careful way when they submit their voicemail messages to me. My ability to hear them is improved in this way than it would be in the face-to-face classroom, not unlike the language labs of 40 years ago. I would say one of the most wonderful things that we're sharing right now is that we're all in this boat together, that we're all adult learners. And this is something that has drawn me to being a teacher of adult learners, that I too am an adult learner who went back to school long after most people have graduated and started their careers. And finally, right now we're discovering new ways to collaborate. I can only imagine that in the next week, we're going to come up with some even better ideas than we've used so far. And I really am excited about listening to other people and other people's ideas about what this might look like.